Welcome to the Zombie Story Zone, your ultimate destination for thrilling tales of survival, horror, and the undead. Today, we have an intense story lined up for you. Zombie Island, The Last Stand. Join a group of survivors stranded on a mysterious island overrun with the undead as they fight against all odds to escape. Will they find a way off the island, or will they become part of the zombie horde? Stay tuned to find out. If you enjoy our stories, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more spine-chilling adventures. And make sure to click the bell icon so you never miss a new upload from the Zombie Story Zone. Let's dive into the horror. The cold metal of the plane wreckage groaned against the pressure of the crashing waves. Scattered across the shore were the remnants of the passengers' belongings, suitcases torn open, clothes scattered like leaves, and the faint smell of fuel lingering in the air. The island, seemingly a tropical paradise from the sky, had become a nightmare for the survivors. Emma's hands were trembling as she tried to steady herself against the wreckage of the fuselage. She had barely managed to escape the sinking tail section and make her way to the shore. As she coughed up seawater, her eyes darted around, searching for any signs of life. "Is anyone there?" she called out, her voice hoarse and weak. A groan answered her, but not the groan of a human. It was guttural, raw, and chilling. Emma spun around to see a figure shambling towards her. At first, she thought it was another survivor, but as the figure came closer, she could see its face, pale, with lifeless eyes and a mouth hanging open, dripping with something dark and thick. Her heart raced. It wasn't human anymore. Emma scrambled backward, her hands and feet digging into the wet sand as she tried to get away. Just as the creature reached out for her, a loud crack split the air, and its head jerked back before it crumpled to the ground. Emma turned to see a tall man with a rifle, his expression set in grim determination. "Get up, we have to move," he shouted. Emma didn't need to be told twice. She staggered to her feet and followed the man as he led her away from the beach and into the dense jungle. "My name's Noah," he said over his shoulder as they ran. "And trust me, you don't want to be out in the open when more of those things come." Emma, she managed to gasp. What are those things?" Noah's face was set in a grim line. "The dead. Reanimated corpses. Zombies. I don't know how or why, but they're all over this island. And they're hungry." The word zombies hung in the air like a death sentence. Emma had heard the term before, but she never thought she'd face them in real life. Her mind raced as she tried to process the horrors she'd just witnessed. They finally stopped at a small clearing where a makeshift camp had been set up. A fire burned low, and a few other survivors were huddled around it, their faces gaunt and eyes wide with fear. There were 5 of them in total, including Noah and Emma. "This is everyone left?" Emma asked, shocked at the small number. "From the crash, yeah," Noah replied. "But there were others here before us. We stumbled on their camp yesterday." "What happened to them?" Noah's face darkened. "Same thing that'll happen to us if we don't get off this island soon." A woman with short blonde hair, dirty and matted, stepped forward. "I'm Sarah," she said. "We're doing our best to survive, but every night they come, more of them, and we've got no way off this island." Emma looked around at the other survivors, a middle-aged man with a bandaged leg, a young woman clutching a makeshift spear, and an older man who seemed to be in a state of shock, muttering to himself. They all looked worn and defeated. "We need a plan," Emma said, her voice gaining strength. "We can't just sit here and wait to die." "Agreed," Noah said. "But first, we need to secure this area. The zombies are attracted to noise and movement. If we're quiet and stay low, we might have a chance." They spend the next few hours fortifying their little camp, using pieces of the plane wreckage to create barriers and setting up makeshift traps around the perimeter. Emma worked with Sarah to gather supplies, while Noah and the others scouted the nearby jungle for anything useful. As the sun began to set, a heavy silence fell over the camp. The survivors huddled close together, weapons at the ready. The air was thick with tension, each person listening intently for the telltale sounds of the undead. The first groans came just after dark, low and distant at first, but growing louder as the zombies drew nearer. Emma gripped a piece of metal piping she'd found, her knuckles white with fear. "They're coming," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. Noah raised his rifle, eyes scanning the jungle. "Remember, stay quiet. We only fight if we have to." The groans grew louder, and soon the first zombie appeared at the edge of the camp. A woman, or what used to be one, with tattered clothing and a grotesque wound across her neck. Her eyes were blank, her movements jerky and uncoordinated. Emma held her breath as more zombies emerged from the darkness. They stumbled forward, drawn by the scent of the living, their moans filling the night air. The survivors held their ground, silent and still, hoping the barricades would hold. But then, a loud crash shattered the tense silence. One of the traps had gone off, a metal shard shooting out and hitting a zombie square in the chest. The creature staggered but did not fall, its guttural groan turning into a frenzied growl. The noise attracted more zombies, who began to converge on the camp with renewed vigor. Emma felt her heart pounding in her chest as she realized their fragile defenses would not hold for long. "Get ready," Noah shouted, opening fire on the advancing horde. The crack of his rifle echoed through the jungle, and the survivors braced themselves for the fight of their lives. Chaos erupted as the zombies reached the barricade. Emma swung her pipe at a zombie's head, the impact sending a jolt up her arms. The creature fell, but more took its place, clawing and biting at anything in their path. Sarah fought beside her, thrusting her spear into the chest of a zombie that got too close. Noah's rifle barked repeatedly, but there were too many zombies, and their numbers kept growing. The older man with the bandaged leg screamed as a zombie grabbed him, pulling him to the ground. His screams turned to gurgles as he was overwhelmed. "We're not going to make it," Sarah shouted, her voice tinged with panic. "Keep fighting," Emma yelled back, even as she felt exhaustion creeping in. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, a blinding light flooded the camp. Emma turned to see a flare shooting into the sky, its bright red glow casting long shadows across the ground. The zombies, momentarily distracted, turned towards the light. "Over here," a voice shouted from beyond the clearing. Emma's heart leaped as she saw a group of people standing on a ridge, waving their arms and shouting to draw the zombies away. They were dressed in military gear, and one of them was holding a rifle. "It's a rescue team," Noah shouted. "Everyone, fall back." The survivors didn't need to be told twice. They scrambled over the barricades and ran towards the ridge, the zombies momentarily distracted by the flare. Emma could hardly believe it as she ran, her legs burning with the effort. They might actually survive this nightmare. The rescue team fired at the zombies, picking them off one by one as the survivors made their way to safety. Emma reached the ridge and turned back to see the undead horde slowly losing interest in the camp and turning towards the sound of gunfire. "Keep moving," the leader of the rescue team shouted. "We've got a chopper waiting on the other side of the island, but we need to go now." Emma didn't need to be told twice. She and the other survivors followed the rescue team through the jungle, their hearts pounding with adrenaline. The sounds of the undead faded behind them, but they knew they couldn't slow down. The journey was grueling, the thick foliage and uneven terrain making every step a challenge. But after what felt like hours, they broke through the tree line to see a military helicopter waiting on a makeshift landing pad. "Get in! Get in!" the pilot shouted, waving them forward. One by one, the survivors clambered into the helicopter, their bodies aching and their nerves frayed. Emma collapsed into a seat, breathing heavily as the rotors began to spin. As the helicopter lifted off, Emma looked out the window at the island below. The zombies were still there, moving in their slow, relentless way, but they were getting smaller and smaller as the chopper gained altitude. "We made it," Sarah whispered beside her voice filled with a mix of disbelief and relief. Emma nodded, her eyes still fixed on the island. They had survived, but the horrors they had witnessed would stay with them forever. As the helicopter flew towards the horizon, leaving the island behind, Emma allowed herself a small, tired smile. They had faced the nightmare and lived to tell the tale, but deep down, she knew that the fight for survival was far from over. The world had changed, and there would be new challenges ahead. But for now, they were alive, and that was all that mattered.